Every veteran has a story to tell.
We need to get out there and get these histories recorded.
I'm a veteran, so I know how to help veterans.
Honoring Veterans Day on Spotlight. 70 years after his mission, a Marine gets an honor flight in the same aircraft. Plus, we'll take you to a Vietnam memorial in the heartland. And then meet a 100-year-old vet who served in the Army's all-black 351st Artillery Unit. But first, how creative writing is helping local veterans. It's Sunday, and you're watching Spotlight.
It's all right, it's all right, it's all right, it's okay. This cadence echoed through my mind as I lay with the right side of my face flattened to the hot sand.
Every veteran has a story to tell.
There are themes that make the world go round. Love, life, death are all concepts humans can never escape, nor would we want to. They are the reasons we exist. They are the reasons we tell stories.
To help veterans and their families tell their stories, the Missouri Humanities provides veteran writing workshops and publishes an annual creative writing anthology, Proud to Be, Writing by American Warriors. The anthology is available for purchase, with 100% of the proceeds going to veterans programs.
These stories provide invaluable insight into the lives and experiences of our veterans. They provide us with history and understanding and connectivity.
For my family, it's allowed them to share that experience. It's my words, but then again, it's not really me talking about it. So, it's kind of like my own personal shield.
Each year, entries are submitted from all walks of military life.
The piece that I had published was an interview with Lauren and Ian Stockel. She told me about her story with her husband, and he's 33 and he has stage 4 cancer. And she's very passionate about the fact that she truly thinks that, Ian being stationed right next to the biggest burn pit had a lot to do with him developing this cancer. It does help me resolve some of the feelings that I have and frustrations because my husband, does suffer from PTSD.
I asked Lauren what she wanted the readers of their story to remember most, and she wrote some thoughts down one night while in bed. Because the clock on Ian's life is set, we appreciate each day. Having cancer has made him work harder at succeeding in all aspects of life, and he is determined to set an example for our son. In the end, they are making life worth living for and a life worth sharing, and readers of their experience are clear evidence that this is not the end of the story, only the next day, the next hour, and the next minute on this precious clock for this family.
For our veterans to get up in front of a mixed audience of both military and civilians is a very brave act. I do also think that it can be a very emotional process, both for the reader and for the audience.
My particular story in the anthology is about a typical day for me as a medic in the Air Force. The next patient arrived. He was an African-American soldier, like me, only unlucky, who stepped on a landmine, blowing off both of his arms and legs. He was conscious when he arrived to the ward and assigned to me. Suddenly, I could not hear his heartbeat through my stethoscope. The surgeon on call was contacted immediately and initiated CPR. 15 minutes later, the doctor pronounced him dead. I was highly upset and asked why we had stopped the CPR procedure. I will never forget what the surgeon said. Wesley, what type of life would he have had if he had lived?
It does help heal. I'm not immune to some of those feelings that a lot of veterans have when they come back. And I can't say I'm any better, but it helps. It kind of helps to deal with that. Getting it out, talking about it.
One of my duties as a public affairs officer was to serve on a CACO team. So that's a Casualty Assistance Calls Officer. Those are the individuals who work with a widow. What I wrote about were my experiences and my observations of the widow and of the process that we went through to help her through that period of grief. And also, it's how I'm dealing with it even after 15 years. There's still haunting memories that I have. I'm using the writing as part of an opportunity to kind of control those memories. I'm in the present, in front of my bathroom mirror, brushing my teeth. Yet another time I've lost myself when memories of 15 years ago slip into my simple task. No trigger, no control.
Being able to hear and share personal stories is healing in so many ways.
My father is a Vietnam veteran, and because of the work that I am doing now with our military personnel and sharing these stories, it's provided me with an opportunity to create that dialogue between me and my father. And so he is 71 years old and is just now opening up about his military experience.
It's been very humbling. It's been kind of a tremendous honor, and it's a legacy.
To learn more about Proud to Be, visit mohumanities.org. A music festival that benefits veterans later on Spotlight.
It's just wonderful to do this again. You speak from 20 to 92, it's just great.
Hearing a great, fantastic story of an individual who gets a chance at 92 years old to go back and fly in the aircraft, essentially the war that changed the world, is a phenomenal story.
I didn't think I'd ever get to do this again, and loved doing it when we used to do it.
When Tom Mohan flew these as a young man, they were shooting at him, and he was a rear gunner in this aircraft, one just like it, on Guadalcanal, which was one of the most pivotal battles of World War II.
And those guys, they were the pioneers. They figured out a lot of what we do today.
They learned a lot of lessons the hard way that made it a lot safer for us.
They were 19 years old, 20 years old, and I have the privilege of flying some of these World War II airplanes now in air shows, and I know how challenging they are to fly. And these guys were doing it with very little experience.
A week after the attack on Pearl Harbor, Tom Mohan enlisted in the U.S. Marines. Following boot camp, he was assigned to aviation, and at the age of 19, he was flying missions with decorated pilot Arthur O'Keefe.
I asked him, what do you have to do to get to fly in one of these? I could see there were two-man planes. And they said, well, if you can, the first 12 guys that can pass Morse code, 8 words a minute, can get to fly. And I was one of them.
The rear gunner takes up his position, and you start her up.
O'Keefe and Mohan flew in the Douglas SBD Dauntless dive bomber in the Marines bombing squadron VMSB 232. Despite being originally outnumbered in air power over Guadalcanal, they flew above the odds.
At full speed, it does about 200 or 250, and a Jap Zero could do 400. The way to use that type of plane best was to get up in the air, get above the clouds, usually about 2,000 foot high clouds, and go for wherever you were sent, wherever the target was, and then come back low on the water. So in 3 months, I got there August the 19th, and I left October the 13th. And we sank 11 ships.
Documenting heroic stories like this one is the mission of the Missouri Aviation Historical Society.
We're losing our World War II veterans at an alarming rate. The World War II guys are in their mid-90s, like we talked about with Tom. So we really don't have much time. We need to get out there and get these histories recorded.
Thank you.
What we're trying to do with the Missouri Aviation Historical Society is to preserve, document, and communicate the history and significance of aviation in the state of Missouri. There's a hunger for history out there. We need to promote our historical heritage. In this case, we're dealing with aviators and aircraft production and the folks that were involved in that.
I think it's even more important to take a step back in time and realize those that have walked the path before you and how foundational that is to someone like me who's in the Navy.
If it hadn't been for their generation, we may be under somebody else's rule today. They literally saved the world.
Oh, felt like you were 20 again. Felt like unbelievable. You know, they're a little noisy, it seemed a little noisier, but you never noticed that when you were 19 or so. But they're beautiful, wonderful. I'll never forget this for the people that set this up and helped me.
While you can't get to the arts, we bring the arts to you. Now, more than ever, HEC Media is St. Louis's home for education, arts, and culture. Go to hecmedia.org for the latest on virtual concerts, virtual gallery tours, author interviews, and much, much more. You can quarantine the artists and the audience, but you can't quarantine the arts. Go to hecmedia.org and bring some joy and hope into your quarantine.
This story brought to you in partnership with Missouri Life.
Jim, we're sitting right now with the Vietnam Wall behind us, but we're not in Washington, D.C. What made you want to create a replica here in Missouri?
Well, one thing is that now the people that's in the Midwest and that never ever got a chance to go to Washington, D.C., but now they can come here, right here in the heartland. It gives me a good feeling inside because, you know, that I've helped somebody. They can come more often now to see their loved one on the wall.
What made you decide to do this?
When I was in Vietnam in 1968, during the Tet Offensive, I made a promise to myself that if I made it back to the United States alive, I had to do something to show respect and honor for my comrades. Well, I made it back to the United States, so I thought about, well, you know, what about building a memorial? One thing led to another, and, you know, it's really more than I really expected, you know.
How far have people traveled to come here?
Oh, I had people from California, even from Washington, D.C., and I asked them, I said, well, you know, you're from Washington, D.C., why are you here? I said, you got one right there. He said, well, we've heard about this, and we just had to come and see if it was what it was supposed to be. And they got here, and they was really impressed because it's a different setting than what they got in Washington, D.C.
When you see people visit, when you come out yourself and sit and look, what is your feelings?
Well, you know, it's you know, sometimes it's easy and sometimes it's not. Some people can come down there and you know, walk right up to the wall and look at a name there and reflect on it, and some cannot do that. They might sit back, stand back and look. You know, of course, it's a very emotional time, but, you know, at least, you know, they've got there and got to put their hand there, and, you know, it's...
Do you know any names on the wall?
Yeah. I've got two classmates that's on that wall. So, you know, and I've got other friends that were killed over there in Vietnam that out of my company.
I think veterans, you may have to know a veteran personally, but
yeah,
it's amazing, it is.
When I went to Washington, D.C., I went and I knew the two guys, Daryl Lettner and Gary Ernst, And I knew what panels they was on, but I didn't know what line they was on, and I thought, oh, that'll be easy for me just to go there, and I'll be able to pick them out. And I looked and looked and looked, and I couldn't find them, and I finally had to go get somebody with an iPhone and tell me what line they was on. But now here, I mean, I can go down there now, and those two that's on the wall, when I look up there, their name looks like it's about this long. You know,
Big.
it just, I mean, my eyes can just go right to that place where they're at.
I thank you for spending time with us today, and I always have to thank a veteran for his service.
Oh, well, thank you very much. Appreciate it.
To learn more or see more stories like this, head to MissouriLife.com.
HEC Media presents Talking with Authors, the podcast. Your favorite writers and genres, with diverse subjects and styles, with new podcasts dropping bi-weekly. Subscribe to Talking with Authors wherever you get your podcasts.
The year was 1919. Woodrow Wilson was president. A stamp was 3 cents. A loaf of bread cost you 9 cents. And on January 18th of that year, Adolphus Thaddeus Watson was born in Clarendon, Arkansas, into a society where African Americans were marginalized by segregation. Watson was raised by his aunt, Fanny Trent, a proud woman born into slavery. Did she remember when she became free?
Yeah, she remember when they said they were free, but it didn't mean too much. And she couldn't read or write. So my job was to learn to read and write as quick as I could. And that's what I did.
As a young man, Watson became part of the Great Migration as he joined millions of other blacks headed north for a chance at a better life. He settled in St. Louis in 1942 with his wife and children. The trajectory of Watson's life was forever changed with the world at war. In 1944, Watson, by now the father of 3, was drafted into the United States Army. America's military was not exempt from the world of Jim Crow.
In World War II, the United States had 2 armies, a black army and a white army. You understand that?
In 1944, Private First Class Watson and the members of the all-black 351st Artillery Unit boarded the Queen Elizabeth, headed for the United Kingdom. Upon arrival, the man raised by a former slave experienced something he had never known: freedom.
Scotland wasn't segregated at all. I tell you what, you felt good about it because we had never saw these things happen.
Winter 1944 was fast approaching, and the future of mankind hung in the balance. As the Allies prepared to fight what would prove to be the decisive battles in World War II, black soldiers faced the unthinkable. As if the Waffen-SS and Luftwaffe weren't enough to worry about, African Americans had to deal with even more hostility from their own countrymen.
The white soldiers hated us so bad.
American soldiers?
Yeah, American soldiers.
How did they treat you?
We fought.
Physically?
Yeah.
But Watson and countless other African Americans answered the call to duty, and in late 1944, the 351st found themselves in the Ardennes Forest in northeast France. The Battle of the Bulge was fought in brutal conditions as the Germans launched their last blitzkrieg, a surprise attack that inflicted severe losses on the Allies. "75 years later, a man who was there, a man who fought bravely under the American flag, still has difficulty talking about the experience.
It's like a nightmare. You ever had a nightmare and you wake up that morning and you didn't believe it happened?
The 351st more than held their own as the Allies beat back the Germans. Private First Class Watson earned 2 Bronze Stars for his service. The hero's welcome for America's troops only told part of the story. As he headed home, Watson asked a friend if the war would change white America's view on segregation. The answer was sobering.
They're going to feel like they owe you something, and they ain't going to want to give it to you.
Indeed, it would be another 20 years before President Johnson signed the Civil Rights Act.
This Civil Rights Act is a challenge to all of us to go to work in our communities and our states, in our homes and in our hearts, to eliminate the last vestiges of injustice.
But segregation did not stop Watson from working in construction for 31 years while raising 6 children with his wife, Lurleen. The priority in the Watson household was clear. Progress was to be measured in knowledge.
All of my kids got college education. Everything I did was worth it.
Webster's dictionary defines a hero as a person admired for achievements and noble qualities, and one who shows great courage. A black man born 100 years ago, raised by a former slave who fought for his country and paved the way for an entire generation to lead a better life, certainly qualifies.
You have to be patient with each other, love each other, try to understand each other.
Many who know the story of Adolphus Thaddeus Watson approach him to only say 2 words: thank you.
I want to thank them for remembering and caring. Of course, I appreciate it.
Follow HEC Media on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram.
Standing here with a ton of people out there ready to rock, ready to party. And I always say this, we get to be here to honor our veterans. I'm a son of a veteran. I come from a family of all veterans. I love it.
Songs for Soldiers, it's simple. We help combat veterans. We're kind of 2 entities. We're a benefit concert, and then we're also a charity that does work all year. And they're both doing this. They're both growing at the same time. We need to keep having a bigger show to raise more money because more veterans are coming to us year in and year out, which is awesome.
And may the good Lord forgive us for the party we're about to have in this park here tonight.
Whether you even support war or don't, we're here because war happens and extremely normal people are the ones that have to fight them. We're here to help those people. And I'm a veteran, so I know how to help veterans. When I was a junior in high school, I started feeling this pull to join the military. So I joined in June 2001, and my senior year, September 11th, 2001, I was sitting in government class and watching the second plane hit the building. So there I go. In our job, instead of driving fuel trucks, they trained us to escort fuel vehicles, and that's what we did in Iraq. And we lost 2 guys. I was in a convoy attack that was like the worst attack on a supply convoy in the history of the war. Our truck was the only truck out of the 26-vehicle convoy where neither one of us were dead or wounded. And that was kind of like my little bit of a battle, I guess, that I fought. Like, I struggled with that. When I got home, I also was still just completely blinded because I came home to this beautiful town. I didn't have a parade, but what I'm saying is everybody was really nice. Buy me a round of golf, buy me a drink, and I was just turned off from what was going on after that. Over there, kind of, and then with guys that I'd served with. And a few years passed after we'd been home, and my buddy Brian called me and said, hey, Ricky killed himself. I was like, man. And that was kind of the thing that made me wake up a little bit. I'm a musician, and I just really wanted to figure out my blessings and channel them into something to help fellow combat veterans out. And 2013, and I was out mowing the city park here in town for the city, and I looked over at this baseball field and I was like, boom, Songs for Soldiers. Yeah, let's do a concert called Songs for Soldiers. The original goal was to help 4 combat veterans a year, as you see in our name, Songs for Soldiers. Here we are, our 5th show, and we've spent over $350,000 on over 240 combat veterans. We've helped several veterans with dentures because unless it's service connected, the VA doesn't cover dentures. So many car repairs, that utility bill, that medical bill. We even helped a veteran start his own small business. We helped Frank, World War II veteran in Decatur. We gave him a wheelchair ramp so he can go outside. We helped John, and he found an alternative therapy in making art.
I'm an Air Force veteran. I served in the United States Air Force for 14 years. I struggle with PTSD. My Vet Center counselor, he had told me that there was an organization that can go ahead and actually help veterans. I had made contact with Songs for Soldiers, and from there, Dustin Rowe, he had provided me a potter's wheel. This is my first piece that I ever made. I never knew that I had an outlet of art in my life. It's something that I'll go ahead and continue with for the rest of my life. So I really appreciate it.
I think we've created something that everybody feels like they have their small piece in. We're all volunteer in this organization. And we basically start planning each year's show about a week after that last year's show.
I saw the passion he had in his eyes. I was like, I'm in, I want to help, whatever I can do. So I started on the committee from the very beginning.
If you come to the show, you're going to see a very affordable show, comfortable show. So we keep ticket prices low. We have $5 beers. A kid can get a wristband for $10, play all day. Bring your lawn chair, sit with your neighbors, sit next to somebody you don't know. And so at the same time, the uniqueness about it is even though it's a small town show, we bring a big time production. So I go out and I feverishly get tons of sponsorship money to cover such a thing. And the sponsors basically have this whole thing paid for. And so 100% of the proceeds that we raise goes to helping combat veterans after this. There is a special feeling about concerts in general. And ours is just magnified because our concert creates a year's worth of work. It's not just over when it's over, it's when it starts. Start all over again. It's just beautiful.
To learn more about Songs for Soldiers, visit songsforsoldiersstl.org. Next week, Women in Comics. Meet a cartooner who draws for the Post-Dispatch. Plus, a special tribute to the one and only Kim Massey. Thanks for watching Spotlight. Join us next Sunday at 9:30 a.m. on KPLR 11.